Like that, I would usually bunk the class in my engineering college. Unfortunately, today I am the presenter, so I cannot do that. I don't have the option to do that. Okay, let us start. Before we begin, I have one question for all of you. We know that USA, United States of America, has been a most powerful country in the world for last century, right? Can anybody tell me why? Why is that? Why they have been the most powerful country in the world for last century? Anyone? What is it? No, but why dollar? Why is dollar so powerful? Because they always get their hands on the most valuable resources on the planet. Always. Be it a crude oil, be it anything, they always get their hands on, right? So that leads to my next question. What is the most valuable resource on the planet today? Is it a crude oil? Is it a nuclear energy? Is it something else, rare earth metal? Anyone?
Information technology.
Data, exactly, correct. And that is what our topic is. Fortunately for me, all the presenters, past presenters have been talking about the data, right? Let me just put this. Okay. So my today's topic is costing and profitability analysis, role of ERP, and deep dive approach. Okay. Please, welcome, sir. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bifurcate this session into three parts. First part we'll discuss about deep dive approach. The second part we'll discuss about role of ERP, and in the third part we'll discuss about with the help of ERP we'll discuss about the specific use case in Foundry, how to calculate costing and profitability analysis component wise up to the component level. Okay. So what is deep dive approach? We all know that, right? Basically, by definition, deep dive is meaning in-depth analysis of a topic, right? Now, what are the few examples? Now, let me ask you this. How many of you have tried to book tickets on Make My Trip, Go Ibibo, anything? Almost each one of us, right? And initially, when these apps came along, initially when we were not aware of their strategies and everything, what we used to do, we used to check the pricing. Okay, I want to go on 21st, I want to go on 22nd, morning, evening flight, what are the prices? And by the time we go and book the flight, the prices will increase, right? See, the point behind is that each application we use now, they are tracking each movement that we do online, each single movement. For example, let's talk about Google only Google, right? So now how many applications we use? We use, Google Map, we use Google search engine, obviously that is the first thing. Then we use Google Photos, we use Google Pay, GPay, right? So they know where our plans are to visit. They know who we would like to go with, right? Where are we going? How much we are spending on each item that we purchase? What are we searching? So probably Google has so much data about ourselves that I cannot predict that next morning where I'll go, but Google can predict it more accurately about me. And that is the scenario right now. And same way as I discussed about, Make My Trip, I discussed about Google, same way Facebook, Insta, Flipkart, Amazon, they keep targeting you, they capture your data, they capture your movement, and they keep targeting you with the advertisement that you can spend on, right? Of your interest. They won't show you anything else. And I became the victim of it. Like last year, I usually go and play tennis every morning. So, and tennis shoes don't last, whatever you spend on them, they don't last more than 1 year if you are, routine tennis player. So last year I wanted to purchase a new shoes, and I went on Google, I went on Myntra, and I started looking for, good shoes from Adidas and Nike. I didn't know how many brands are there who exclusively make sports shoes. So I started browsing through 6,000 rupee shoes, 8,000. They are usually costlier than our standard shoes. So 6,000 rupee shoes, 8,000 rupee shoes, and ultimately I ended up buying 6,000 rupee shoes. All right. And then after a week, my friend told me that okay, there is a company called Nivea. They make the same quality shoes, and they sell it for 2,500 to 3,000 rupees. But I never get to visit that, I never get to know that there is a company like that. So this is what the power of data is, right? And Have any one of you have seen the movie Social Dilemma on Netflix? I know this is not the platform to talk about movies, but this is actually a good one. I'm recommending you must watch movie. Even if you have to buy the 1 month Netflix subscription, go on Netflix and watch this movie Social Dilemma. It basically focuses on how the designers are trained to capture your data, how the designers are trained to track each and every movement that you make, how the designers are trained to make the applications that you spend more time on, right? So everything around us is about data. Everything around us is about data. And the best example is Instagram, right? The Instagram designer came up with one single idea that you don't even have to, swipe the reels. They started with 30-second reel and it will keep on rolling. And you'll spend more and more time. So basically, if there is a advertisement they push in between the reels, you are habituated to see the advertisement at full length, and that means they get paid more, right? And that was the master stroke of Instagram. So the point of all this discussion is data has become the most valuable resource, and I am not saying that. The Economist said in 2017 that data is a current day's most valuable resource on the planet. Not crude oil, not energy, data, right? The power of data is significant. We all know that. The point is, if they are using our data to exploit us, to gain out something out of us, why don't we use our own data for our own benefit, for our foundry's benefit, for our company's benefit? And having said that, I'm coming to our second segment of the day, of this presentation, is a case studies of ERP. Obviously, when we are talking about data, when we are talking about foundries, so we'll record our data, and ERP is the tool to do that, right? So we'll see two case studies where ERP can help and how they have turned around the company. But before we do that, there is again a pop quiz question for all of you. I know that we are going to have our own session for the quizzing, but this is good one. Every one of us would be investing every now and then in the share market, right? Now, which is the company in this whole planet which has grown at 20% consistent revenue, minimum 20% revenue year by year for 60 years? No. No. And there is another question. I'll give you the hint. That company is Indian company. Okay, I'll give you another question. Who bought the first supercomputer in India? First supercomputer. Yes, somebody from the back. Correct. That's the right answer. The company that has been growing its revenue 20% per annum every year for last 6 decades is Asian Paints, and first supercomputer was bought not by ISRO or IITs or any other technical institution, but the owner of the company, Mr. Champaklal Choksi. He is the founder of the company Asian Paints. Company was established in 1942, and it went public in 1973, and they purchased the supercomputer in 1987. Now, Mr. Champaklal Choksi has always been keen on recording data, and why we are talking about Asian Paints, we'll see in a moment. So, and there is one more statistics actually I would like to add to it. Out of these 60 years, in last 30 years, Asian Paints business is doubling its size every 3 years. Every 3 years they are doubling its size, right? See, I'm telling you, Asian Paints is not the base paint. They don't invest that much into R&D. There are other companies who do that. They're competitors. Product wise, they are not the best. Business wise, they are the best in their domain. Why? Okay, so we'll come to that. Company went public in 1973. Let's say if you have invested 10,000 rupees in 1973 when on the day public issued IPO, today the worth of those 10,000 rupees would have become 3.75 crore rupees. The return, considering all the dividends has been reinvested into it. So returns given since the inception is 3,750 times, right? So point is, how they are able to make so much money, right? They are getting 90% money from their MRP into their own pocket. So how they are doing it? So Mr. Champarlal Choksi said initially in the 80s that he analyzed the data and he said 20% of my total product value, total sales price is being taken by distributors, right? So typical structure of this kind of company is manufacturer, then distributors keep the inventory, and then there are dealers, end dealers, right? So 20% of the margins are being wasted behind distributors and middlemen. So he said, okay, you guys are out, I don't want to spend so much money after it. So if they do not want to spend money, the dealers started shouting that, okay, if you give us not more than 3, 4, 5% of the total sales price, and we do not have that much space to keep the inventory, and we cannot keep the inventory to meet up the customer's demand, it will never work. So he said, don't worry, we will deliver you multiple times a day, whatever you want, whenever you want it. That is what he said. And how did he do that? At the time, people started calling him crazy. This is an insane idea. This is the only work of a crazy person. But only this kind of crazy ideas eventually end up making you genius, right? If you succeed into it. So what they started doing is, they pushed the middleman out. They started delivering the products. Their current delivery statistics, I'm telling you, 4 times a day. 4 times a day to each of their end users. Now, each of the end dealers. And they have dealer network of 70,000 dealers in India, right? So total per day delivery is around 3 lakh deliveries. 3 lakh deliveries per day. Now, what is the statistic for that for competition? The competition, number 2 player Berger Paints, they are doing only 40,000 deliveries. 3 lakh, 40,000. See the comparison, right? There is no match. The third number, ExxonMobil, they are basically, they spend the most behind R&D. Their deliveries are 10,000 deliveries, right? So how is the distribution is so great and still unmatched by the competitors, right? How did they come to know that, okay, which dealer would want which paint at what time in which season? This all goes to data. They implemented ERP, they had data even before that, and they study the data, and they study the demand forecasting, they study and learn how to improve logistics, right? And take the help of that data analysis, they were able to do that, right? And according to what I have studied, it's still going to be unmatched. The competitors are not anytime soon are going to overtake that, right? And Asian Paints ERP implementation is one of the most successful implementation in the history of ERPs. Not just in India, all over the world. At the scale what they have implemented the ERP. So, okay, since we are talking about the case studies of ERP and how the companies has changed, let's say now I am the salesperson, I am coming to your foundry tomorrow, and I am making a typical salesperson speech, ERP vendor speech. Okay, ERP can give you the insights, ERP will be centralizing the data, you can have the data transparency, and it can reduce your inventory time, it can reduce your process cycle time, and you will have transparent operations and all that stuff. Are you going to buy the ERP? No, right? Because cynic will say, don't talk about Asian Paints, they have the money to implement ERP. ERP is still a luxury product for foundry industry, right? We have seen it is not, right? And let us see the another use case of one of the foundries, and you probably might have heard the name of this particular foundry. It's called Nucor Steel. Initially, before 60s, it was called Nuclear Corporation. Have you heard about it? It's the industry leader in making steel plates. Industry leader all over the globe, right? So Nucor Steel, once upon a time, was a struggling company. They have negative net worth of $23 million. Think about it. $23 million negative net worth. At that time, they faced typical major challenges that we face, that we complain about. They are phased out technology they are using, and high labor cost and low productivity and all that stuff. So these guys are hero. I'll tell you why we call him a hero. Ken Iverson. He joined Nucor Steel as an intern, and then in 1965 he became CEO of the company. Obviously he used to look a lot younger at that time. So he immediately began to implementing changes to improve the operations, right? One of the first change, you can see these are the names, I have given the resources as well. You can right now go onto your mobile phone and type the name Ken Iverson and you will find these things out. These are so many widely acknowledged use cases. So one of his first step was to implement MRP system. At that time it was not called ERP, it was two phase before. So MRP1, MRP2, and then I think term coin ERP came into the existence, right? And he implemented ERP again, just like Asian Paints. He started, actually ERP came into existence in 1960s. So they were one of the first companies and one of the first steel companies, that is for sure, who started implementing MRP system at that time for data analysis. And by doing data analysis, they achieved 75% reduction in time to process the customer order. 75%. That means the customer order that they were processing in 10 days, now they are processing in 2.5 days. Look at the numbers, right? Unbelievable. They use the data analytics. Now this point is very important, and this is going to be our third segment of the presentation. They use the data analysis to cherry pick the high profit making item and to weed out the low profit making item, right? And by doing that, they increased their revenue per ton steel by 12%. Yes, by 12%. So what they did is they started analyzing their sales data, their costing and profitability analysis on each item, and they started making more and more, as they were a product company, started making more and more profit making item and started weeding out the loss making item, right? So in 1980s, just 15 years later, Nucor Steel broke into Fortune 500 company. They are still, even today, one of the Fortune 500 companies, and in 2021 they booked the revenue of $26.4 billion, out of which their net income was $1.7 billion. Now look at how the turnaround they have done, right? So we are talking about the use of the data analysis, doing costing and profitability analysis, and how it can help in Foundry with the help of ERP, right? So now typical challenges of the Foundry that can be solved by software or ERP. We know that, okay, planning is a headache, costing and profitability is a headache. We do not know item wise micro level costing and profitability. Then we have another challenge of inventory tracking and traceability, right? So these are common. Data integration, digitization. Now Modi sir has came into picture and they had started making everything digital. So we have to prepare e-invoice and e-way bills and GST returns, everything online, right? So that is a good thing. So these are the places where ERP can help. But let me ask you this question. This is basically our typical cost sheet, right? I have gathered some information and I have prepared my own cost sheet. So let us not look at the numbers, but if we want to give a quote to some customer for the LM24 grade casting, which weighs around 2 kg, so we'll have a material cost workout, we'll have conversion cost workout, we'll have process cost workout, and then if there is a machining involved, we'll have machining cost operation wise, and then other add-on charges, and basically we will come to a landed cost and we'll add some profit and we'll give the quotation to customer. Everyone is doing it, right? Everyone is doing this, right? Now if I ask you this question, and this is something to think about, that now you have done the costing part, you have given the quotation to customer, you have added 10% of profit margin or 12% of profit margin, and final prices you have given the quotation to customer. How do you check whether actually you have met that estimated profit margin or not? How do you check that whether we are actually making the casting at the same cost or better or worse? How do we do that for each and every individual item in your company? If not, where is the difference? Let's say we have estimated that this component's cost would be 1600 rupees per piece, and if it comes down to 1500 rupees or 1700 rupees, where is the difference? Where are we making money or gaining money? So how many of you do this kind of analysis at item level? If you do, please share your thoughts how to do it. Because in software, if you use Tally or other ERPs, we know that we can create cost centers, right? But we can create cost centers. Now if you want to book the costing at the item level, you have to create cost centers at each individual item. You cannot go and make a data entry of every cost that you book for each item. You cannot do that, right? So how do you get the actual data at item level? And that is where our presentation comes to. That's where ERP can help, that to customize ERP for Foundry. So actually, if I tell you about my story, I am a son of Foundrymen, as Senthil has introduced, and we found the need of a software, and that is how I started looking for a software. Ultimately ended up, long story short, ultimately ended up opening up my own software company and develop the software exclusively for Foundry industry. But during that journey, I learned that if I take some generic software, I have to get it customized so much that my software cost become very less and my customization cost become very much. So now what we have done, and many people now what they have done is they have exclusively developed softwares for Foundry, because there is a structural level changes that is to be done. And why these changes are to be done? To book the costing at the item level. This is one of our reports, that is what we call is Costing-Profitability report, that will give you bird's eye view for the selected period of time, for this date to this date, for each the item that you have produced. Right? For example, these two items are very important for me. Why? Why the first item is not important? It is giving me 31% profitability, but it is taking the bulk of only 0.16% of the total production. So that item is not very much important for me. I should not waste time developing such items, or continuing that, unless and until I know that okay, the production volume is going to go for 5% or 7% or 10% or 15% of my total production. So these two items are very important because of the total production. If I am making 100 tons, 7 tons I am making for this item only, right? So this is important item. Now these two items are again that requires my focus, because it is taking 5.37% of my total production, right? But I am making loss for the selected time period. And why I am making loss in this particular item? What are the factors that went wrong that I haven't considered? Because I am considering all the factors for all the items, then why these two items? That's where you do the deep dive analysis into the data, and that's where this report, if you drill down that particular report and double click on that, this report will come up. That is called item wise COPA, Costing and Profitability Analysis Report. That's where you get all the details, just like the details that you saw at the time of giving cost estimation, the same type of report, but on the basis of actual data. See, here you can see on the top that okay, Foundry costing and profitability for material conversion, what is the material gain that you have had, and what is the total cost to cast, right? In the second part of the report, actually I cannot open the complete report, let me, yeah, here, see, this is the report. So if there are other processes to be done, what is the process cost for that particular item for each and individual process? Then if there are some add-on expenses, the add-on expenses that you can book. I am coming to the part how you can book the add-on expenses component wise, and ultimately you will find what is the profitability for your foundry, because we run foundry as well as machine shop, so those two becomes our profit center. So what is the profitability in your foundry that you have achieved, and what is the profitability that you have achieved in the machine shop, and what is the total profitability, right? So how do we do that? So coming to that particular point, this is how, let me share screen. See, this is the typical data entry screen for production entry in aluminum die casting, right? So here we are capturing all the data, your operator data, your batch heat number data, and this batch is linked with the raw material that you have consumed of particular supplier, particular cost, right? Then your machine name and which machine you have produced this casting, who was the operator, what is your actual weight that came to be. All the details we are capturing at each and every entry level, and we are booking the cost then and there. So that is the structural level difference between generic ERP and foundry specific ERP that I was talking about. Same way, we capture the details for machining, same way we capture the details at the time of making process entries and everything. Now let us see the comparison between projected and actual cost. So we saw that when we project the cost, there are multiple heads: material cost, conversion cost, process cost. So basically my projected cost to cast was 574 rupees. This is just a random number, dummy data, so just for the explanation purposes. And actual cost that we saw in the report, that came down to 548 rupees. So in this particular item, it's good for me, right? Because I actually made more money than I expected. But still, if you come to the next slide, see the process cost for the casting component, my estimated process cost was 46 rupees, and my actual cost came down to 50 rupees. So there is clearly somewhere there is a discrepancy with my estimation and the actual, because somewhere I am gaining some profit and somewhere I am putting the profit. So how do you check ledger by ledger where actually I am putting the money and where actually I am gaining the money? So for example, I have highlighted one thing here. I have estimated the heat treatment cost as 24 rupees. This is again I am telling you random numbers, but just to highlight the importance of it. And actual cost came down to 30 rupees because I had to send all the castings out for the heat treatment process. So job worker charged me 30 rupees, so my actual cost came down to 30 rupees. So that's where I put the money, right? So there are again different ledgers like machining process cost, labor cost at each level that you can monitor, cost of rejection that you can monitor, cost of inspection you can monitor, cost of anodizing processes. So we can monitor the cost at each level, but how do we factor in the cost which cannot be directly mapped with particular item? For example, if you are doing a steel shot and how many steel shots of how much work is being used to shot blast this particular item? We don't know that, and we are not going to monitor that, right? Otherwise, keeping the record, cost of keeping the record would exceed the actual cost, right? So how do we do that? There are other heads as well, as I was discussing with sir over the call. There are heads, see overheads, transportation costs, depreciation. There are multiple types of depreciation costs like machine depreciation, building depreciation, marketing expenses, admin costs, interest costs. All that we have to factor in. But how do we factor them in? How do we factor them in? So common denominator in foundry is per kg basis. But common denominator in machine shop, we can calculate all this cost. For example, let's say my depreciation cost of building comes down to 50 lakh rupees, and I have total produce 50 tons of casting per month or per year, 500 tons, right? So I can, and for a machine shop, I can calculate that how many total number of hours all the machines put together has worked, and I can divide by that particular number, and I can come down to per hour basis, and for that particular item, I can factor that per hour cost into how many hours that component took to be machined. So that is what we can do. And finally, I would like to close with this closing remark. See, with the help of ERP, I'm not saying that okay, with the help of data, you purchase aluminium, you rub some data on it, and you convert it into gold and sell it. ERP le liya, life jinga lala. It's not going to happen, right? But you keep to record your data, and if you are visionary enough, you analyze those data, and there lies your genius moment. You can do one small thing which all the past presenters described, one small thing, and that can change your future, right? In 21st century, quite literally, it is an era of information. We saw that, right? When I joined the foundry in 2009-2010, I joined my dad's foundry. I came back from United States, and I saw literally at that time, especially in cast iron, SG and foundries, they were literally running the foundries on the back of envelope, or maybe rough sheet, or maybe few spreadsheet along the way. That's it. Even for accounting, they'll hire a third-party person. They'll ask them to bring their tally and laptop with it, and they'll just give some numbers, and he'll have to punch it. So this is not how we run this business anymore. Otherwise, there are always somebody out there who understands the value of this particular tool, this asset, who understands the value of innovation. They are going to implement it, and they are going to outgrow us in the competition in future, right? So if we want to be surviving in the future, if we want to create a legacy for our next generation, we have to adapt to new technologies, right? And I want you to see the next slide very carefully. This is the last slide, promise. Which type of foundryman we would rather like to be, right? The one on the left who says that, okay, my gut feeling says we'll earn at least 10% profit on this item because XYZ competitor is doing it, or a person on the right because he does the, all the deep diving into data analysis and all this stuff and comes down that we'll make a loss. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much for having me here again. And if you have any questions, I'm open to that. Unfortunately, I'll not be joining you guys in the evening, so you can take this contact details. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me later on as well.
Do you have financial accounting module also as part of?
No, we have a tally bridging module. So we bridge. See, frankly speaking, we developed this tool for the MSME sector, and today 8 out of 10 foundries are using tally. So what we did is we developed a bridging tool with tally so that there is no data entry redundancy. But what we do is we capture the data in our system and we push it into tally and the other way around.
Any more questions?
No?
Thank you.
Java outlet in Chennai?
No outlet, sir. Everything is digital. Why do we need outlet? Zoom is our outlet, or Microsoft Teams.
So you have all the order about the present?
Yeah.
First, you have done for MSME.
What is it?
Most of the things for MSMEs only you have done that.
Yeah, as in like this software? Yeah, we have implemented in many companies. Not now, we are not limited to MSMEs because people keep on asking for more modules. So now we have become in-depth ERP.
What I am asking is there is a Foundry Conclave which is happening in February.
Okay.
IIF
Okay.
Bangalore. There is going to be a separate this thing for MSME Conclave.
Okay.
So in that, we thought we could ask
Okay.
you to come and present.
Sure, sir.
That can be an eye opener for a lot of MSMEs.
Sure. Anyways, I'll be there. I always participate in IIF Access.
I know that.
But
If you have anything specifically for MSMEs,
okay.
then that can be a eye opener for all the MSMEs, where
Okay.
we can invite you and request you to present.
Sure.
Who is the customer in Chennai?
So Chennai, I'm quite new. Yesterday only we have finalized one order, but I think it's better we talked in private. In southern region, basically in Tamil Nadu, we have only 3-4 customers. Our main focus till now was northern region, western region. I have come down till Karnataka. Now this is the first time I'm representing myself in Chennai actually. Yeah.
I have current president is here. Vinit Jain sir
Yes.
is here.
Vinit Jain, sir, current president of IIF, they are our customer in both the plants. Universal, yeah.
So, thank you very much, sir,
Thank you.
for taking us through the importance of engaging ERP system to our business for understanding our operations and to make it more profitable. We now request Mr. P.V. Ramaya, Council Member IIF Chennai Chapter, to felicitate Mr. Shyamal Shah with a traditional Angavastram. Now we request Mr. Felix Sagaya Raj, past Chairman IIF Chennai Chapter, to felicitate Mr. Shyamal Shah with a memento.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.